Hi everyone, and welcome back to Brook Faye. If you are new to this channel is about law, finance, and lifestyle. And today we are going to be talking about law. So for those of you who are aspiring attorneys or who are in law school already, or even if you're a new attorney, then this is probably something for you. I'm getting a lot of questions just about like my journey and my path into being an attorney and just the things that I did to be where I am now. So this video will just kind of be about what I did in undergrad, what I did to get into law school, and just answering just a few of those questions that I'm constantly getting about when it comes to scholarship, about involvement in undergrad and how it impacts you in law school, why I chose the law school that I did, and then just kind of applying for jobs. So we'll just get into that. Okay, so for me, I decided to go to undergrad in an in-state school. So the reason I chose to do that was, it was one, a lot of personal reasons, but two, I remember my dad telling me, get your undergrad degree at an affordable cost. Because I knew I wanted to go to law school. I knew that was something I was passionate about. And so he was like, don't get in a large amount of debt getting your undergraduate degree because you're going to go to law school and there's probably going to be some debt associated with that. And hey, thanks to him, I applaud my dad for giving me that advice because it really has made a difference for me now. So the school I decided to go to, I ended up actually getting a full scholarship. And in addition to getting a full scholarship, actually after my first year, I ended up getting my living expenses covered too. So like my room and board or the apartment I lived in, I was able to get a refund scholarship of additional scholarships to pay for that as well. So that really benefited me. For me, when I was in undergrad, I was involved, I was in a leadership scholarship. I was involved in the School of Accountancy. And so I had a lot of leadership roles that I was able to put on my resume when it came to applying for law school. In addition to that, I also did a lot of internships, and I gained a lot of work experience while I was doing my bachelor's, and then when I went on to get my master's in accounting. So I did my bachelor's and master's in accounting with the idea of doing the CPA route. However, I just knew for me that I didn't want to take a gap year, or I didn't want to, take too long of a break because I knew law school was the ultimate goal for me. So for me, after I finished my master's, I went straight through to law school. But a little bit more about that in a second. Again, I kind of want to just talk about the portion of, being an undergrad in my master's and kind of what I did to build my resume for law school. So one of the number one things, again, that I will always say to anybody when they ask me about tips for applying to law school is, number one, you do not have to major in political science, pre-law, or any of that to go to law school. I know, people say, well, that's common sense. But to be honest, it's not. There's a lot of students who really just don't know. And I'm very thankful to have known that. And I remember somebody telling me, get a degree where if you don't want to go to law school, you can always fall back on it. And so that was the reason I chose accounting. I was very passionate about numbers and just managing money and understanding wealth management. And so I decided to go into accounting. Now, don't get me wrong, if you do choose to get a major in political science or pre-law or English or something like that, there is nothing wrong with that. You can still go into law school and be just as great as a law student as anybody else with a diverse background. It just, if I were to do it again, I probably would still do the same thing and just get a business background or something different that would set you apart for admissions officers, or even when jobs look at your resume. You have to think, when they look at a pool of applicants, they're going to say, what makes you different? What's going to make you an asset to our law school or our company? And so you really want things that are really going to set you apart, whether that's a different undergraduate degree in a different major, or even just extracurricular activities. So those are just some things to keep in mind. Additionally, one of the number one things that I'm always also getting asked is, scholarships and what made you choose your law school. So for me, I decided to go to a regional law school. So I'm from the South, so I decided to attend the University of Mississippi School of Law. And the reason I chose to attend Ole Miss was because, one, I got a partial scholarship, so I will say finances were part of it. And number two, Ole Miss was a well-ranked law school in the Southern region, and I knew that there were a lot of lawyers who had attended this law school and were in various states, in the southern region very heavily. And so I knew that the alumni were very successful. And so I thought, okay, well, if I go to school and I decide to practice in the southern region, then I, will have a large network. In addition, I also thought, having applied to other schools like in the DC area and just, outside of the southern region, I thought, okay, what if I wanted to, work in DC or New York or in a different city outside the southern region? How would that, would I be able to do that with this school? And so for me, that was a decision. I really didn't know the answer to that question, to be honest with you. I knew everybody was like, go to a T14 school, which if you haven't heard of that, those are the top schools, like the Harvards, the Yales, go to those schools because if you go there, you can really, go anywhere. And I will say that's true. But for those of you who haven't gotten into those schools, and myself included, there are other ways to make those same connections. It is still very possible. And I, can say that I'm an example for that, as well as many of my peers. Not only did I, get the opportunity to work for multiple law firms and clerk for judges, I also got the opportunity to work on Capitol Hill while I was still in law school. So those are just, things, I would consider. Again, it's if you had the opportunity to go to top, 14 law school, by all means, if it fits with you, then do that. For me, I just knew that financially I couldn't afford it. And at the same time, I thought, well, if I'm getting this amount of debt, that means I have to work for big law. I wanted that to be my decision. I didn't want to have to do that because of the large amount of student debt I had. So I think that's just kind of something to consider, in making those decisions. Again, if you can get into those schools, by all means, go. But I think there's also additional things you have to factor in. Just know that it is possible. You can do it, but more than anything, you need to network. You need to make those connections. You need to put yourself out there. And you need to go get those internships and summer associate positions. But it's definitely possible regardless of which school you go to. So in addition to all of that, another reason I chose to attend the University of Mississippi School of Law was I thought that they had a great transactional or business program. And so for me, coming from an accounting background, I knew I kind of wanted to do something along the lines of business law or kind of, somewhere in that area. And I saw that Ole Miss had a great program for that. I saw that they had a business certificate, that they had some great tax professors who attended NYU, Florida, just different schools that I one day would be attending to get an LL.M at. So I also kind of looked at the whole, package of the law school. And I think that's something that, as somebody applying to law school, you need to do as well. And I say that because, you have to think, that's what admissions do for you. They look at you as a whole package. They look at your LSAT score. They look at your GPA. They look at your resume. They look to see what an asset you can be to that law school and what you can bring. And I think it should be the same when you're looking at a law school. You need to look at what value can they bring to you? What alumni network do they have? What programs do they have? How can they be a benefit to you? So I think, when going into law school, make it a two-way, street. Like you're negotiating to get into that school and you want to see what that school has to offer you just as well as admissions does for you. So that leads me into one of my big final tips that I have for people going into law school, which kind of goes into that scholarship portion, is negotiate. Cannot say it enough. Negotiate your scholarships. Negotiate financial aid. Negotiate. And again, this applies for undergrad as well as law school or any school for that matter. I really wish somebody would have told me this, going into my educational career, the power of just asking, the power of just having a conversation. Because essentially that's what you're doing with these admissions officers when you're, asking for additional aid or you're asking about the school and inquiring about, different programs. You're having a simple conversation. You're negotiating to get the best terms that you want out of this relationship. So I didn't do that with Ole Miss, and I really wish I did. But I did learn that going into my LL.M program, and that is what I did. And I was able to get a full scholarship at the University of Florida for doing that. And so the best way for you to negotiate is, for example, if you're applying to law school, you should probably apply to 5 to 10 law schools. Which I know that can be an expensive process. However, the LSAT, through LSAC, they do have waivers and additional things that we can talk about in additional videos. But I would at least apply to 5 to 10 law schools. And I would even apply to law schools that even if you didn't necessarily want to attend, you believe that you would get, more scholarship, or the school would really want you to attend. And the reason I say that is because once it's time for you to apply to another law school and you get admitted, you want to use that law school as leverage. Say, hey, I got a full scholarship here. They really want me to attend. What can you do for me, in comparison to this law school? In addition, you want to apply to law schools that might be ranked at a higher level. So again, you can come back to this other school and say, hey, I got into this program, they're higher ranked. I really want to attend your law school, but I'm here. What can you do for me to make me want to attend your law school? And when you do that, you also have to be ready to tell them what you can do for the law school. Again, negotiating, it's a two-way street. You want to say, this is what I can do if I'm attending your law school. This is how I can be an asset. How can you do that for me in turn? So that is one of the biggest tips that I definitely learned, and I wish I would have learned sooner. It probably would have saved me a ton of money along my journey, but that's something that I really want to pass to you, is make sure you negotiate. In addition to negotiating, before going to law school or a program that's going to cost a lot of money, set out a budget. That's one thing I did. For each law school I applied to and that I was really considering going to, I made a budget in Excel. I will say I'm an accountant, so I love Excel. I use spreadsheets all the time. But I made budgets for each school and made line items for how much it's going to cost me over 3 years to attend those schools. I included tuition. I included cost of living. Like, for example, when I applied to Ole Miss, the cost of living in Oxford, Mississippi was a lot cheaper than living in Washington, D.C. So I had to factor all of that in. I had to see which, was the best, opportunity for me from a career standpoint, but which was also the best for me from a financial standpoint. Weigh the pros and cons. Again, not just financial, because money is not everything, Also weigh, the career opportunities, the networking, whether you want to be in that city, the professors, whatever it is, make sure you just kind of weigh that out. That was something that just really worked out well for me, and it helped me make the best decision in choosing my law school. Again, I can go deeper into my law school experience, the clerkship, the internships I did, how I landed, a job at a big law firm here in my region, and just the different opportunities that I had while being in law school and what I learned from undergrad. So if you guys have any more questions about that experience, or if you guys have questions just about my general accounting experience, what it was like to work for corporate America or a Big Four, please feel free to comment and I can make a separate video on that. But if you don't have any more questions, again, you can like, comment, and subscribe. My Instagram is @_brookefay. I hope you guys stay tuned. Just continue to follow the channel. Thanks. Bye.